as I said, I've gone through a process where I started off very insecure, couldn't really talk very much, blah, 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 to someone who doesn't stop talking. No, but to knowing what I want to say. Why I became an artist? Well, yeah, that's quite a question. But well, obviously I was talented at drawing, so I had that. Actually, even as a kid, I could draw a person. I had a facility for lightness, so I could draw someone and I could get their likeness. But really what was going on, so when I was young, I grew up in a family. I had like 3 brothers. It was very male dominated. I was the youngest. I had no voice, basically. And I felt that if I could talk in a different language, maybe I'd be heard. And painting was the language I chose. So that was the main pull, really. I really wanted to communicate. I felt very frustrated as a child. So my main inspiration is basically nature. And I also do portraits and people, but it's nature for me. So it's all about the moment you're in nature and you lose yourself, you lose all your thoughts, you let that moment of letting go and just being in a place of beauty, and that part of you that is beyond your thoughts and your things. So it's all about that place, and that's what I'm talking about endlessly. So I'll paint. That's why I make paintings that are about the natural world. I like to have a person in my paintings because I want the viewer to relate to being that person in nature. So I want you to relate to being the figure in this space, not just the space, because it's about the personal experience of being in that space. That's what I'm trying to talk about. I mean, actually some drawings that I've done, I haven't had any figuring and they work quite well, so I don't know, it may change, but from up till now, it's always I wanted the figure was there for the viewer to associate with. Well, I'll be somewhere beautiful. And I find that really inspiring. Obviously, I've got a thing about water. I find water, especially vast areas of very still water, I find it touches me in a kind of funny way. So I'll be somewhere beautiful that I get that feeling from. And I take photographs. I love taking photographs. So that's the start of it. And then afterwards I'll go through my photos, then I'll start messing with them, I'll edit them, I'll change them, I might mix a couple together. I start to make an image and I use that image to paint from. And it has to be really sharp in image because I love when I'm painting water, there's so many details. I've got a really good camera and it sort of catches the detail of the water. And I love that. I love painting that abstract thing that's figurative at the same time. I love oil painting because it's so flexible. So, I mean, I've tried to paint in acrylics and, I mean, first of all, the colours alter enormously when they dry. So I find extremely annoying. And oil paint, I just find incredibly flexible. You can rub it off. I mean, sometimes you have to wait till they dry so you can paint on top if you want to change it radically, but you can obliterate anything underneath. I just like the flexibility. I like it when you can see the paint, when you know, there's a sweet spot where you walk away and it becomes both paint and figurative and it all just comes into one thing. If you're too close, it's like just a load of marks, and if you're too far away, it's very, very figurative. But I like it when it does both at the same time. I like that magic. Well, I think all of my paintings couldn't have been painted by a man. I think they're all about a woman's experience, my personal experience. But as I was saying, as I pointed to earlier, I grew up in this misogynistic time, and the family I came to from, my mother just loved men, thought they were really important, and I had these three brothers who, you know, there was lots of men. And then I went to art school, and you would have thought that in art school, you know, being avant-garde and whatever, they would have been, I think the whole art business being one of the slowest to change. Men were, a man who did a painting that they thought was serious was taken so much more seriously than a woman. There were loads of women at the art school, and it just was not the same. So, as I said, I used art as a way of finding my voice. So to begin with, it was all about finding a voice, finding what I had to say, and then slowly became changed. And now my painting's about what unites us all, rather than finding who I particularly am. Well, there's lots of women artists who I find fascinating, but at the moment I'm really interested in Paula Rego. And I love, because I've been doing pastels recently, been trying to do some pastel drawings, and she's the master, mistress, whatever. she's the one. And it's really difficult to use pastels to work with that. I mean, she does wonderful figurative pieces. What I really, really love about her work is how she draws the forms, the form of a leg, or the form is so full and rich and wonderful, and it's made of marks. I always love, I hate it when you can't see the paint or whatever it is. I like it to be there and doing something else at the same time, and she's really good at that. It's called immersion, and I think it's very, makes a lot of sense. He's really immersed in nature. It's about losing yourself in nature, that moment of letting go. The photograph itself might have a moody look to it, but then when I get, when I get it home, I get it on the computer and I start to play with it. I want to pull out the detail. I'll make contrasts higher and the colour. I'll play with the colours until it starts to really say what I want it to, really, it just becomes much more extreme. And what I want, and the details, I try and make more extreme so I can really see what I want to paint. Usually the people in my painting are very personal to me. It's my son, my partner, my mother, me. Yes, I really love painting this, although it drove me a bit crazy because it's so complicated. But all of this business, all of these shapes, they're so abstract but so particular, and there's so much going on. It's in stillness, the fullness of stillness. Stillness is so rich with so much going on. So a moment in the sea, and you've got like looking under the sea, the sun reflecting on the top, you've got the waves underneath, the shapes, the bubbles, and this all, you're trying to express it somehow in paint, and you're trying to express the light and how, and the moment of letting go in this light, in this environment, which on a photograph, the actual photograph, you wouldn't really think too much about. It makes a lot of sense, but when you're painting it, but it was so complicated, trying to work out where I was, like when you're doing these bits and this bit and what's happening. So what I would tell myself as a young woman starting off painting, I would have told myself to just carry on with what I thought. Don't worry too much about what other people think. Just get on with it. Just keep going. Keep doing what makes sense to you. Never do anything that doesn't make sense to you. And just keep at it. I mean, I felt very intimidated by everyone's opinions and thoughts, and that really, confused me as a young artist. And also because I talked about the misogynistic thing that you couldn't even put your finger on, but it was there. So when the male person started saying something, everyone's listening very hard, and when you say something, they're like, whatever. So yes, not let that sort of thing put you off. Just keep doing your thing. Don't worry too much about what's happening outside.